Oh, hello, everybody. This is Rona, and I got a special treat for you today. I hope it's going to be one of many, but my mama is going to tell a story from her childhood. She doesn't want to be on camera, so you'll have to look at me. Yeah, but you'll be hearing her. So here we go. Take it away, Mama.
Well, I want to send some messages out to my cousins, first, second, third, fourth, whatever, because that's all I've got left is cousins. And I thought I might start, since I'm about the oldest one at 86, I would start telling them a little bit about how we came to be. Back, our grandmother, Bessie Stitt, was raised in and around Tazewell County. And when she was 15 years old, she rode a horse on a trail through the mountains from there to Panther Creek, Panther Fork, where her half sister Noah Collins was living. And that old Nora made a slave out of her. She just had to do everything. So I don't know how old she was when Grandpa found her. But anyway, that's where our roots are in that part of the country that I know of. So anyway, now our grandpa Calloway, David William Calloway Lester, was from Gilbert, and his dad was Amos, but I don't know if he had two wives or I'm getting them mixed up, so I'm not going to say which one was his wife. But anyway, he was raised over there, and Grandpa and Marshall. And Marshall had two sons that I know of, Dave and Raymond. And I knew them. And I knew Uncle Marshall. And one time we walked up ahead of the holler, up past where the Trents lived, the Lockards, and there was a path, it was more like a little wagon road. But I was like 4 or 5, I can remember it real good. And we walked up over there, and when we come down in Gilbert Creek, we was right at Uncle Marshall's house. And the road went down, and he lived down under the road. And so that's the only trip I can ever remember going to see him. But I'd seen him in, other places. Okay, that takes care of Grandpa. He and Granny Bessie married, and they lived across from Uncle Elick and I'll call her Aunt Nori. We called her Aunt and Uncle every old person. If we didn't, we'd get our butts kicked or something by the old people. Anyway, Aunt Nori and Uncle Elick, she lived with them. And then when she and Grandpa got married, they built a house across the road, across the creek, kind of down under him, between them and the Neals. And that's where they lived. And they had a big well. And they lived there for I don't know how long. Because, your mind goes now, so I don't know what it was back then. But anyway, she had 5 girls, Nori, Gladys, Hazel, Mary, and Ruth. And then, about 15 years later, she had Charles. And he was 9 months older than me. So then Aunt Hazel had Bill, and I was 6 months older than him. So there was my companions while we were growing up. Bill lived down under the Aunt Hazel and Uncle Arthur lived down in the cemetery where that new church is built. But Morning Star Church is built across the creek from it. So they lived over there on that bottom. Okay, Grandpa and Granny moved up there on Longpole and the road was an old road, and they lived beside of it across the creek. And Uncle Bilton and Aunt Dixie lived across the other side, which I love dearly. And so I can remember Granny putting Charles and me on her Palomino horse and taking us for a ride up that old road. And they were building the new road there, because you didn't have to cross the creek after they built the new road. but it used to go up and up across, they had to cross the creek, and then it went up and around the mountain and all that kind of stuff. In fact, Mom walked around those big cliffs up there over from where Flem and Trent lived to school. That's where the road was. So anyway, that's a little bit of that. But Grant, Charles and Bill and I, we had a ball. Every time we got together, we disappeared. Grandpa told us tales how it was when they were fighting the Indians trying to settle. And he told one tale about they chased them out of Gilbert and down Longpole, and they come up over the mountain there. Just now, this is just when trails were just trails. There's no roads, but there, you know, if you're familiar a little bit, there's a when you come up over that road and through the gap and down the other side, and you come past where we lived when I was growing up. But anyway, they chased a bunch of Indians, and they disappeared around that gap. Well, they settled in and waited for one of them to move. And I don't know how he saw it, but the light was just right. And one of the guys saw a big toe sticking out of the bottom of a tree. He crawled up in it. It was rotten. And the Indian had crawled up in it, but he hadn't got all his foot in it. So he shot him in the foot. And that caused chaos. And of course, they got them all, you know, run them off. And Charles and I used to go up there and go around one of those roads and hunt arrowheads. And he found all kinds of them. I wasn't interested in them. I was just out. But he would find them everywhere. And so then I get back to me now. I told you a little bit about that. When you go up Panther Fork, not now, it's changed. First thing you come to, out of sight, you cross the creek, and up on the mountainside sits this big 2-story house. Uncle Ellick, he did a good job. It was 2 stories, and when you went in, there was the long hall that went straight back to the kitchen, and you could go through the dining room. That's the way you went back to the back. And so anyway, then you go upstairs, and there was a bedroom on each side of the stairway when you got up. It was a beautiful house. And so that's where they lived. And then here comes Daddy. He come into the Daniel Boone Prater. He came in from Kentucky. He had a tough childhood, and the people that raised him, Coley Thornsbury and Elizabeth, they called her Lizzie. They brought him with them when they came into West Virginia to get into the timber business for the mines, or for building houses and stuff. So they had a sawmill, and Dad worked for them. And now I don't know how they got together, but anyway, they got married. And I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry, but Granny and Grandpa lived over there, and then you go on up. You could. Aunt Lydia and Uncle Neil lived straight up the road from them. And there it forked again. The road forked. And you go up one side, Gabe, Aunt Lydia's brother, and Uncle Ellick's brother lived up there. And it forked again, and there was a point come down, and East Steps lived on that. I can't remember their last name, but we knew them. And if you went up the left side, up in the main top of the holler, the mountain it didn't go straight up, it curved around. It was beautiful. And that's where Uncle Wills was born. That's where Peter and Aunt Emmy, Uncle Peter and Aunt Emmy lived. And they had big gardens and fields and, you know, cows and horses and everything. And one of them had sheep. Now, I don't know if it was the Neils or the Collinses, but anyway, they had sheep, and between the 2 houses, which were outside of each other, they had a sheep herder's cabin, and it had 2 rooms. A long room you went in, it had a bed and a fireplace, and then you stepped up into the kitchen. It had a stove and a table with chairs, and that's where he lived when he was herding the sheep. But he was long gone by the time Mom and Dad got married, and they lived in that sheep herder's cabin, and that's where I was born in 1935. And Dr. Coleman, everybody from over in there knows Dr. Coleman, or do their parents do. He rode a horse from Jaeger over to Panther Fork to deliver me. And of course, I was stubborn. I come in the middle of the night. So he spent the night. And the next morning when he got up, his poor horse was almost covered with snow, and the snow was so deep it was almost up to its belly. That's how hard it had snowed. Come a blizzard. So I don't know. Now, I don't know how he got back out. I wasn't interested in that, and I never did hear. So anyway, I might have known and forgot. But anyway, that's where I was born. And, you know, I never paid much attention to that for a long time. And when I was, maybe 10, 11, Grandpa could make molasses out of sugar cane. And one of them, I don't know, there's something, I don't know as much as I thought I did. But anyway, someone had some sugar cane, and they wanted Grandpa to make molasses. So he made a fire pit up there beside that cabin, that sheepherder's cabin. And I got to explore it. That's the first time I'd ever been in it, and never thought about going in it. But it's long gone now. But anyway, he got that fire going before we got over and got those molasses boiling. So he whittled us spoons from tree limbs, little tree branches, so we could skim off the scuff on top of it. We ate till we got sick, and because that's what you have to do, you have to skim it. And he made molasses, so we had a big ball. Neighbors all come, the kids running around, and I went into that, and I got the image of it in my mind, and it looked like it was a snug little place.
That's where you was born.
Where I was born. Yep, I didn't remember being born there, you know.
No, of course
when
not.
I was born, but this was when I was a little older.
Mm-hmm.
Anyhow, I hope you and Faye enjoying this. Anyway, that's one of my great memories there. And then I don't know where to tell this or not, but I'll wait about telling that. But anyhow, that's the people I knew up in there. So then when you went up Longpole, sometime or other, we moved into the house that Grandma and Grandpa lived in across the creek there. And I walked to school, to the Longpole School from there with Clarence Collins's kids, Ruby and Roosevelt and Harless and the East Steps. And we walked around the curve and up the road to the Longpole School. Well, there was a tree. The creek goes straight up and past the cliff and then turns, you know, and so in that curve was this big old beech tree. And the older kids were swinging out over the creek, you know, and swinging back, getting back onto the bank. Oh, yeah, it was his older son, too. I forgot what his name is. I can see him. And McGinnis and Aunt Norris kids and everything. But anyway, Mom gave me strict orders not to swing out. Well, they looked like they was having so much fun. And I was about 6, 7 years old. And so I thought, she'll never know. So I walked around and they gave it to me. Sorry. And I took a big swing out over that creek and my hand slipped and I ended up down in that water on them rocks.
Oh, no.
Yeah, didn't I ever tell you?
I don't remember that one. Did it hurt?
I got banged up, you know, but I went home wet. And
Lord have mercy, Mother.
So far, Mom not finding it out, you know.
I'd say I was a good girl compared to that. Anyway,
we won't get into that.
No.
But anyway, I never tried that again. Never tried that again.
I bet not.
But anyway, we would walk all the way up to Longpole School and then back. And of course, Granny and Grandpa lived across the creek there in front, up from Uncle Bilton and Aunt Dixie. So we knew up through there. We never were scared. There were no cars. Everybody walked or rode a horse. And there was no cars to one of the Lockharts. I don't know if it was Dow. No, I think it was Judd or Bird or somebody like that. Bought a Model T or a Model A, and he hadn't learned to drive. And they weren't steady. You couldn't hardly keep them in the road.
Oh Lord.
And you could hear him coming in that thing. It was backfiring and a chugging along and a rattling. And we would get out of the road up on the bank. And he'd just laugh and he'd just go, and he was a fighting it. You could see him fighting it, trying to keep it in the road. It was hilarious.
Oh, my goodness.
And of course, the roads weren't much either. But anyway, that's the start. And then I went to school to Longpole to the second grade, and then Dad, the timber business went down, and they went. He went over to Lincoln, over near Oceana to work, and I went to school at Oceana for a while, a year or so, and Dad got hurt in the mines, and we moved back to McDowell County, and so anyway, we lived under the cemetery for a while, but I'm getting, yeah, in that house where Aunt Hazel. And,
Oh.
Well, I get ahead of myself. I should have written it all down.
No, you're doing fine.
But anyway,
do better than I do.
When we lived, I remember Gerald was born. Now I'm going to go up Longpole.
Okay.
You go up Longpole, and it forks. Right fork goes right, and the rest of Longpole goes on up where the Trents and the Lockharts lived. And there was a bunch of them too. And we went to school together, and But anyway, we lived up the right-hand fork, and you had to wade the water. There was no bridges, and it just wound around and around and around. And so anyway, we lived under the cemetery. And I never will forget that cemetery because it had what they call a stile at the back, steps. You go up and down on the other side. And I never could figure out why they did that because it was way up in the woods. But anyway, that's where Gerald was born. One day, Roy Cook, they lived down the road from us. And he came in and got me, and we went to the garden, which was, you go around the hill, and there was the garden and the field, and we picked lettuce and onions and whatever we could. This was in June. And when I got back, I had a little brother, Gerald.
Oh.
And I must have been jealous of him because I was 3, a little over 3, 3.5 or something. And one day, there had no screens, back then. And Mom had put a lace curtain over him to keep the flies off of him.
Oh.
And he was
Sorry.
He was lying there. I think that's telling me shut up.
No, it isn't.
He was lying there, and I looked over at him. I loved him, and I didn't know what to do with him. But anyway, his big toe was sticking out from under that curtain.
Oh, Lord.
And I remember, and I just know how smart I was. I got down on my hands and knees and crawled across that floor and bit him on that big toe.
Oh.
And I guess I got my butt spanked, but I can't remember that.
I bet you did. Poor Uncle Gerald.
Oh, me, but he was so sweet. When he got to where he could walk and talk and everything, we'd go out under the cemetery and gather hickory nuts and stuff like that. And then we moved on up to the head of the Rye Fork because they had moved their sawmill and their horses. They had huge horses. Oh, my gosh. Big old, I forgot what they're called.
Belching?
Yeah, big feet. And they were gentle, but we didn't know that. They were so huge and we were so small, we were scared to death of them. But anyway, we lived up there beside the country store or company store. And all the houses had fences around them and had flat planks on top where you could walk them. Of course, I'd get my butt beat if I tried it. But anyway, I did. Well, one night, Dad woke me, and I never will forget it. The moon was shining so bright you could see everything. And he got me out of bed and took me in there and raised me up to look out a window. And there was a cougar, or they call it a panther, standing in that moonlight, shining like gold.
Oh.
And it hollered. And it was on there for I don't know how long. And I got to watch it walk fence out, and I didn't know there was any there. They thought they killed them all, I guess. But
Did it
anyway,
scream like a woman? Is that the
oh
ones that
yeah,
screams
that's
like a
yeah.
woman?
If you ever hear one, you'll never forget it.
I don't want to, thank you.
But that startled me, and it kept me in the yard for a long time.
Oh my.
And one time, Gerald and I were outside getting coal, filling our coal bucket, and Uncle Will had a great big old bull. He had a set of horns like you see on TV, where they've got. And we looked down the road, and we heard it coming bawling, in a cow. So we was filling our buckets, and it kept getting up there, and I don't reckon it ever bothered anybody, but we scared death of it. And it got closer and closer, and Gerald finally he said, "Run, sissy, it's got hooks."
Oh,
So
bless.
we left our coal buckets and flew through the gate and got in there, and old bull went on, like
Oh my
up to
goodness.
the barn. And but anyway, we had some good times up there. We were in the head of the holler, and we had to walk everywhere. And you go out back, and there was a point come down over there, and we had a big garden over there. And I remember the only time I can remember Granny coming, she walked up there, and we went over in the garden. And of course, she had cancer, and we didn't know it.
Granny's
she didn't
mom.
know it. Yeah, Granny Bessie had cancer, and by the time she had surgery, it was already too late. That's what killed her, and she died in 44. And back then, Pat was just getting started, Pat Fanning. So
The funeral home director.
the funeral home director, yeah. Well, I'm thinking everybody knows him, but they don't.
Well, no, I'm just adding it for
Yeah, good. I told you I should have written it down.
No, you're doing
But
great.
anyway, I'm hitting the high spots. I'll have to go back and fill in later. But anyway, he came to homes, and when he embalmed people,
That blows my mind.
it did well. Now good grief.
That just blows my mind. He embalmed people in their house.
Yes. So
Behind a curtain.
they put up a curtain between the living room and the bedrooms, and I had they'd already called us or got word to us, so we was over in Lincoln, and so we were there, and he came in, and I'd never seen a man as big as he was. He was so tall, and he came in, and he had that curtain up. So everybody was in the dining room and the kitchen and on the porch, and he was in there doing what he did. And so all at once, I couldn't stand it. I pulled that curtain back just enough to peep at him, and he saw me, and he winked at me, scared me to death. But I have never. Now this was back in 44, and I was what, 7? No, I wasn't 7.
9.
About 9 or something like that. And what he was doing never left me. I can't, I'm not afraid of it or anything, but it's just there what he was doing. But anyway.
What did you see?
Huh?
Did you see it?
Well, he was working, yeah.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Had buckets and things down under,
Oh, my Lord.
And so anyway, Granny had a big old...
It's amazing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry. I'm so sorry.
Granny had a big old trunk in the corner of her dining room. And I couldn't find a bed. So everybody was a-talking and a-eating and drinking coffee and this and that. There was the office crowd you ever saw because people really gathered for things like that. And Grandpa and Granny were well liked. And of course, Aunt Hazel and Gladys and all of them were there with their kids. Well, I crawled behind that trunk and went to sleep. Next morning, I woke up to chaos. I could hear people are running and a hollering, and the men were running up and down Longpole Creek hunting for me. And some of them had gone into the mountain hollering for me, and they were out behind the house hollering for me. And I raised up from behind that trunk, and they about fainted.
Oh my goodness.
I tell you what's the truth. I got some love in that day.
I bet you
They
did.
were out hollering, "We found her." Where? Behind the trunk.
Oh,
They
Lord.
never thought to look in the house. They thought
Oh,
I just wandered off. And
oh.
anyway, um,
At the wake. You got
the,
excitement at the wake.
yeah, yeah, I just got tired and couldn't find no place to sit or lay, so I found me a hole and crawled into it.
I don't blame you.
And I slept like a log till I heard them hollering and screaming for me. But they were so happy to see me, I tell you. And
I bet they were.
yeah, and I'm going to leave it at that.
Okay.
And then
That's wonderful.
that gives them if they followed it and can see in their mind, that gives them a little bit of an idea of what it was like when I was growing up.
But you'll be doing more.
Uh,
Yes, she will.
if you and Faye have anything to do with it, I will. Yeah, I'll be doing some more. I'll take it from there. But you notice I get mixed up with, I mix them up. So I meant to do one thing at a time.
That's okay.
But it was the way it was,
Yeah, that's okay.
But I want to add one thing.
You can add whatever you want.
We started running up and down Longpole Creek and up and down the mountains when we were like 6 or 7 years old. Fishing, swinging from limbs, going way down past the cemetery. When you went down through there, the mountains were so close together, the trees met. And you certain time of the day, part of that was dark because it was no sun could get through. And we'd fly through there.
Oh, I bet.
Our bare feet smacking that road.
On that dirt road.
Yeah, on that dirt road. And there was a couple lived on down through there. And they Goldie and Ethel Hickenbottom. And there was a tale going around that they were witches. That was what was going on back then, This was back in the early 40s. And we were scared to go down there. So we'd get down to see where they lived and we'd go back. But anyway, one time we went down and Billy was in the bed with the measles, I think it was. And who are you waving at?
I'm waving at Victoria. She says, "Hi, Mama."
Okay.
And Rona.
Okay. Anyway, he was in the bed with the measles, and we didn't know it. We just went down and hollered at him. We were standing there talking to him. And I heard Aunt Hazel say, "You don't get out of that bed." Well, we went on down a little ways, and we heard him hollering. No, we heard Aunt Hazel hollering. And here he come. He had climbed out of that window and come flying down through there with whatever it was, measles, I think.
Oh, my
and Aunt
goodness.
Hazel hollering at him. And he went with us down through there, and we waded the creek and everything. But we survived. And it's a wonder. So I'm going to end it right there.
Okay, well, Victoria's enjoying the stories. She's in Chicago.
Oh, well, then, just an old girl from West Virginia.
Well, she's the one that comes back home to Kentucky, or they used to.
Oh, my dad was from Kentucky. I'll get into that later. I'm saving Rona's voice for her.
She's doing me a favor. I had a big day yesterday, and I don't have much breath.
Did you learn anything, Faye?
I'll have to tag Faye in this.
Yeah. But anyway, I've got so much more I could talk for hours.
Well, go ahead.
No.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I don't want to run everybody off the first time.
Oh, thank you, Mother. Thank you so much.
They won't believe some of the tales I'm going to tell them.
Well, that's why I want
one thing that I was trying to get across, I forgot.
Okay.
I got sidetracked.
I know. Here, hold it over there closer.
We wandered where we wanted to, in and out of houses. If we wanted to drink of water, we went in. We stopped and talked. We were not afraid of anybody. There was no fear. And if we did not do good, if we got out and did something, got into a mess, our parents always knew it before we got home. We never could figure that out. So, but anyway, the old women, they'd smack you.
Oh my!
There were few old women left, not many, and they were the grandchildren of the settlers, and so they were in their 90s, 80s, and 90s.
That settled the area.
Yeah, that settled the area, and they would sit and smoke that old corncob pipe and talk to you.
Wow!
Wearing their bonnets.
Wow!
It was a good time.
That's
we weren't
amazing.
afraid. We went everywhere. But anyway, like I said, I'm signing off this time.
Okay, well, Victoria loves your stories.
What part of Kentucky is she from?
um, the Lord,
Dad's from Pike County.
was it? Her,
Oh, I know. It's out there on the
in,
Tennessee Kentucky line.
yes,
Okay.
Pike County is where my grandpa's from. Victoria, I didn't know. I couldn't remember. So thank you, Mother. I love you.
If anybody wants to hear me again, I'll be back.
She'll be back. I hope this starts uh, a series because I want her to tell her story. She has an act, and it's so interesting. And these kids these days don't have a clue about that. Spare the rod, you spoil a child. That's right. That's right, honey. She was brought up right. I'm so glad she's agreed to do that. I hope a lot of our kinfolk get to hear it. But how are you doing? Okay today, Victoria? I appreciate you. I'm glad you got to hear it. And she's got a lot of good stories. I've been talking to her, so she decided today because I had such a big day yesterday going to that doctor. I spent half the day there and didn't realize it, and I'm just wore out. Fulton is in Fulton County. Not sure Graves County is near. Also, okay. Yes, God bless my mama. She's 86, and she can tell that how it was back then to like you can picture it. And I'm just so glad she's agreed to do it. Could you hear her okay? She'll tell more. Thank you, darling. Well, big love, hug, and send out love to everybody. And be sure to help each other and pray for each other and pray for our country. And Mama will be telling some more stories. I'm doing good, but it's cold outside here. Your mama's about the same age as my mama, born in 1933. Yeah, she was born in 1935. It's cold there. Well, I don't know. I haven't been out but once. I don't think it's too bad here. Cool. But where was your mama born? Kentucky? Bless her heart. I was so glad she did that. I really love to hear the stories, and I knew that her kinfolk would, besides everybody else that would, listen. Oh, yeah, the sun's shining here too. So that's good. Uh, oh, okay, good. That's where you go back home to. I don't know if Pike County's near there or not. I'm not geographically wise like my mother is. She would have made a good college professor if she'd had the opportunity to go on to college and everything because she's sharp as a whip. And she she's got a lot of good things, got good stories, and that just did my heart good. And that's a good thing for a Mother's Day weekend, isn't it? To start that off right, because yeah, Pike County might be near the West Virginia line. I don't know. It's a shame. Oh goodness, wasn't that great on that before my nerves break down. So I'll blame what I can on it. Well, I'm going to get off of here because I just didn't have much extra air today. I had to use my rescue inhaler, so my asthma's kind of bothering me. Wonderful stories. Oh yes, I'll tell her, honey. She's gone back to her room to rest, but I'll tell her, and I'm so glad you enjoyed them, because I love them. I love to hear her stories. I love my mama so much, and she just has a way of telling them that you feel like you're there, and I really am glad she got on here. So you have a wonderful Mother's Day tomorrow, and I'll talk to y'all Monday, unless Mama decides to talk some more tomorrow. Then that'll be special. But you all have a wonderful Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. And I'm sending love and a big old virtual hug. And I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.